Hey everybody, it's Friday, December the 27th, 2024, and this is How to Restart a Church, a spin-off podcast where I, Pastor Trey Comstock, my friend and colleague, Pastor Emily Larson, and often really cool guests, who we'll get to in a second, talk about how to make church happen and how to make church happen again. This week, we will be talking about the Appalachian Service Project with our very fun guest, who I'll throw to Emily to introduce to you.
All right, y'all. I'm really excited to get to introduce everyone to a good dear friend of mine. We went to school together. This is Melisa Winburn now, who has gotten married since I knew her, to another one of our classmates, which is wonderful. But she is the president and CEO of the Appalachia Service Project. She does a lot of really wonderful nonprofit work in the Appalachia area. So, Melisa, go ahead and tell us just a little bit about what it is that you do.
Sure. Hi, friends. It's really great to be here. I have the best job in the world because I work with Appalachia Service Project, often known as ASP. And what we do is critical home repair and replacement for our neighbors in need throughout Central Appalachia. So we work in 5 states: Virginia, West Virginia, Kentucky, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And we'll host about 10,000 volunteers a year or so, doing pretty substantial work. And a lot of times when I say volunteer work, I think people assume landscaping and painting. And those are really great things to do, but it doesn't fully encompass the scope of ASP, or anything from the foundation to the chimney top.
Wow, so it really is kind of that, all the way up the houses. And so in terms of how do y'all get, where do these volunteers come from? I think it's part of that. And then what's the process of making sure these volunteers know how to do a thing, right? Like, again, I too love volunteers. And I did some work coordinating volunteers in an international context, and the skills, they vary widely. And so, kind of, what's that like? How do you find these amazing people, and then how do you connect these amazing people to the right work?
Sure. Yeah, we really do have the best, most amazing volunteers in the world. A lot of them come from churches. So it's groups that want to go and travel to a different part of the country and meet some more of their neighbors that just maybe happen to live in other areas. But we also have corporate volunteers, individuals. Really, we say we are a conduit for good. So we accept people right where they are, just the way they are. Anyone is welcome to come and be involved with us. And then we assess what your skill level is with construction. So you'll tell us if you do have construction skill, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. And we'll try to match you up with a project that makes most sense for the skill level. And then we have resources for volunteers, like a construction manual, videos. Our staff stop by on site to make sure that volunteers feel comfortable while they're out there, and that they can do the best job possible for the homeowners.
So that kind of gives that, like, support structure that they need, placed around it. So
yeah, certainly.
And then, like, try, Appalachia, not small, right? Like, it's it is
big.
A long
5 states.
It's 5 states. It's, how do y'all kind of how do you build the connections to, like, know what are the needs? What is the needs pipeline work? And then how does the, get the boots on the ground in the places? Like, how does that whole system come together?
Yeah. So ASP has been in existence since 1969. So we've been working in this area for over 55 years at this point. We started in Eastern Kentucky.
Okay.
And really, I think we ballooned out a little bit and then decided to stay closer to Central Appalachia. We just started meeting more neighbors in more counties. We have more counties that would love for us to be there serving than what we can serve right now.
Yeah.
And so we try to create relationships with elected officials, schools, social services that are on the ground, figure out where their needs are. We never go into a community unless we're invited. We want to be a resource for things that are already happening in the community, partnerships that are already going on. And so we try to spread out our resources as much as we can. Sometimes we'll commit to a community for 3 or 4 years and then need to move on to another one. Others we've been serving in for a long time. It just kind of depends on what the need is and how far we've been able to fulfill that need. But it's a hard thing. I think, one of the greatest things about the job is getting to say yes. And one of the hardest things is deciding, we have over 5,000 applications in our office right now.
And so,
we'll probably do about 400 homes.
What's fascinating
year, so
about
we're always
that y'all
feeling
is
that additional
in some ways,
need
like that,
and need as many volunteers as we can.
Part of Appalachia has been one of the areas with a lot of economic need, but that's for like the last 100 years. Right. That was that part of Appalachia was one of those places hit really hard by the Depression. Some of the most famous photographs from the Depression era come out of, this part of Appalachia. And so and even today, right. Y'all have 5,000 applications for what is frankly, honestly, an amazing 500 slots, right? I mean, that's 10 families a week. Incredible running on volunteer labor. So it's not that y'all ain't doing enough problem, right? And so I wonder, like, in your experience working in Appalachia, like, what are the struggles that kind of have trapped that part of the world in this kind of like now more than a century cycle of poverty?
Sure. Yeah. It's a complicated situation, right? Central Appalachia is one of those areas in our country that are designated as a persistent poverty area that continues to cycle after generation. That's just kind of stuck, it seems like. It's also an area of very rich culture, of wonderful people and resiliency, beautiful landscape. So it's very interesting. But one of the issues is that it's rural. And the mountain landscape makes it difficult for industry to be in and out. Coal is a significant producer there, but that also is transient. So you'll mine an area for a while, and then there isn't any more coal, and then it moves out. That's right. Yeah. And anytime you have an extraction industry where, the money doesn't necessarily stay in the area for a long time, though it does provide good jobs when it's there, it's difficult whenever it leaves. And anytime an area is dependent on any one industry, regardless of what it is, there's a vulnerability when that industry moves out. So we are seeing a lot of really amazing Appalachians who are wanting to shape the future they want to see for themselves. And now with internet and better road systems, they're able to get connected to various different things that are making it so they can pull their
I spend a reasonable amount of time on those roads, and even in those
but it's
roads,
just different. It's not as
still mountain.
easily
It's still
available
mountains.
as it is in
Okay,
some
I actually have to
urban
qualify
areas
here.
in our country.
So don't let my wife don't let my wife know I said they're mountains. I've been calling them hills. I have been internal to my family, have been attempting to build a beef between the actual mountains of Appalachia and the Rockies, because I'm a city kid from a very flat place. I'm from a swamp. I'm from Houston, Texas, which is a literal swamp. And so and then I lived in Antwerp, Belgium, which is below sea level, and so I have had beef with I've been beef, and my wife's from Charlottesville, Virginia, which is at least Appalachia adjacent, Blue Ridge Mountains. And I have been saying these aren't mountains, they're hills. And so, for the sake of inclusivity, I do actually understand they're just older mountains. And so they've been shaped over, and that's, that they're truly ancient, and the Rockies are very young, and that's why they're craggy peaks. But I just, for the sake of consistency within my own family, she listens to the show, and so this whole thing's blown. But I've had this beef ongoing. Yes. Yeah. Dear God, no. Yeah.
Yes, the
Yeah.
hills and hollows
Yeah.
of Appalachia. We'll do that. Yeah. And they're
No,
on their boat. I think some of our volunteers,
I worked in
especially our
West
young ones,
Virginia
are
as an
amazed that there's
unlicensed
not
electrician,
cell service
which that's what
everywhere
happens.
still in Appalachia.
I did this
Yeah.
for a summer,
So they
working
drive
not for
around and it's
ASP,
like
but
a
for a similar
whole
project
nother
that was
world. Yeah.
working in West Virginia, a similar Methodist-based project that was working in West Virginia. And I was utterly reliant on GPS to get around, and I spent the whole summer lost. Just the whole summer. Yeah, it was just impossible. Like cell signal, you're right, forget about it. But GPS coverage was kind of forget about it. Like it was just spent that whole summer just kind of hosed,
Well, hard,
unable to
wasn't
get anywhere.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, and utterly necessary. So I'm curious what got you into this work. Like what ASP is doing
And
is amazing. And we'll
takes
get
us
to
back
hear a little bit.
to a simpler
Even
time where
more
paper
needed
maps
now
were
than
a
it
thing.
was
Oh
3 years
yes.
ago. But
yeah.
how do you find yourself in this work of coordinating, the work on 500 homes in a year?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I am one of those stories where I showed up first on a work
Yeah.
site at the age of 14
Yeah.
as a teenage volunteer. And some really loving adult group leaders put an X-Acto knife in my hand and taught me how to put up drywall. And it changed my world. It was not something as a young girl that anyone had ever encouraged me to go into the construction
Yeah.
field, but I found out that I loved construction. And really, I had met a nun in Philadelphia at one point, and was worried about what I was going to do with my life. And she looked at me and said, just find the place where your gifts and talents intersect the needs of the world, and go do that. Live in the middle of that intersection, and you'll be happy, or at least fulfilled in your life. And then I learned that that's what calling is. And I found out that I love construction, and there's a significant need for safe housing in our world. And so I figured if I could just put the two of those together, this is where I would be. So I haven't always been at ASP. I've gone and done a few different things, but I have been back at ASP now for just over 11 years, and love the fact that that's where that story came from, that we do see just, short-term missions, I think, have a lot of criticism that's important to listen to. You need to do it well and make sure that you're loving communities in the right way.
Like it are kind of
but
that
sometimes
interesting
I think,
balance
wow, short term, like this
yes,
is
your
been
10,000 volunteers, most of your
going,
10,000
so I don't know
volunteers
how long
come and go. Or maybe you only see them once a year, right? Maybe I'm sure you have those churches, those partners who are like, yeah, we take a team to ASP every year, and those are awesome, right? And those kind of relationships are good. But y'all are always y'all have been in this community since the 60s. And you've been in these communities for the better part of 25 years and on staff for 11 years. So there is this interesting balance where it's not ASP is building these incredibly long-term relationships, which are, coincide with like overall community development and building relationships and being part of a community, and not just being like these outsiders coming in, waving some hammers around and then moving on. But then our ASP also has the opportunity to be continually renewed by the energy of these volunteers for whom, it's always the first experience, and you always get the, those wonderful moments where like you get to watch the next generation version of yourself who gets handed that X-Acto knife for the first time, who've never been a place without cell signal, so there's this interesting, like, projects like y'all are this interesting halfway in between of, you can have that wonderful energy of the people who are only going to do it for a week. And that is like, that's a specific kind of energy, which is really helpful, very helpful for that, because for them, it's all new. And that newness is beautiful. But then also y'all can be there for coming up on 60 years to build those incredible relationships, to be able to get into places and go places and leverage resources that our beautiful teams who are going to be there for a week never could.
right.
Right.
That's right. I mean, you heard me say earlier, we never go into a community unless we're asked, and
Yeah.
we have a community
Yes.
advisory council that helps us know how do we serve the communities better. Our county
Yeah.
setup team is there all the time, meeting partners and connected, and we believe in asset based community development. Sometimes the asset that the community is looking for actually come from outside, and they're wanting to bring the asset in to a community, especially in some of the rural areas
Right.
where there's just less access to those sorts of things. So we see ourselves as a partner in a solution that's already underway in a community. We're not bringing a solution. We just have a skill set that the communities are bringing in themselves.
I love that. I love that you have such an emphasis on this relationship and building community and listening to the needs of your community. We work with a program called East End Communities for the eastern part of Houston, and they are doing similar construction, or they desire to do more similar construction for low income housing. To help Abuela keep her home in running order. And when we were at one of these meetings, Trey and I had the conversation of
Right. Yeah.
this realization. They were wondering how to get the information disseminated out into the community of how do we let people know
Yep.
that they have this resource available, right? And we went, that used to be the church's job. That used to be kind of what we do, right? If you think to the Old West, the building where the town hall meeting was and school was kept, and all of the information was disseminated was the church on Sunday, right? That it used to just be this great central community hub. And it sounds like ASP has really been that hub. And now across 5 states is incredible that you can continue to maintain the infrastructure to do that, to still listen at the
Yeah.
local level, but to coordinate across this interstate organization. It's incredible.
Yeah, certainly. And of course, what we do as a Christian organization, there's a bigger calling here across the board of loving neighbor. And we know that everything that we do, though we strive for the highest quality construction that we can do, will be gone one day. But hopefully the relationship building and
Yeah.
that connection with
Sure.
calling
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and loving neighbors, that's the part that is eternal, right? Our founder, Tex Evans, had a famous saying. He said, really, we're a relationship ministry with a little construction on the side.
Well, and I think
And
that
there's a
again, that
connection
is
there
that
that's
like
amazing
really
and
healthy,
makes you want to continue
like
to keep
again,
coming
a
back
lot
and
of
back
missions gets a
because
bad name.
I think it's because we've connected with
And
what we're called to
I too,
do,
used to do it for a
and
living.
that just
It,
feels
like
great.
gets a bad name, um, because it ends up feeling very extractive. Even if you're there to do work, you're not there to do that work that long, and you're there to feel good about yourself or to save souls and then feel good about saving souls or something. But like, I think that grounding in relationship is I think partly roots what you're doing in a bigger project of who the church is supposed to be, because then the church is the people. It's also not the buildings. I mean, I am spending a lot of my professional life getting rid of buildings. Right now, I am trying to end up at the church with fewer buildings. And actually, if you track church property trends, we're just at the forefront of what's going to be a massive real estate sell-off. So if you're thinking of selling your church building, sell it now, because I mean, I'm fixing to have at least as of today, I'll have personally within my own job 2 church properties on the market within 2 miles of each other.
Yeah.
And like that's a bad idea. And so this has never been about buildings, and so I again that perspective on relationship and clearly y'all's ability to do that for the long term, I think grounds y'all in the like healthy, beautiful version of this process where again, like having those outside volunteers is killer. But only when it's balanced with these like deeply rooted relationships. Yeah.
That's right.
So
Exactly.
go ahead.
The church is not meant to be confined inside the walls, right?
Yeah,
It's
I was going
about
to
us
say.
meeting our neighbors and filling the needs of those neighbors with love.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
thank goodness that
I
you were
would
in
love to
place
know kind of
when
what,
disaster struck
given
not
y'all's
too long ago.
long-term
Your ministry
relationships
is
and
needed
given the
more
kind of
now than ever. I
resources
bet
that
you
y'all
have
have in
gotten a
place,
lot less sleep
what
in the
has
last several
been,
months and worked a whole lot
what has
more.
been hurricane / landslide, massive landslide and flooding recovery? What happens when what did Asheville get? 30 inches of rain in 36 hours? Something, in a place where the water flows down. I mean, it's just nightmare scenario. So I'd love to know how that's impacted your work and kind of what you see as y'all's role in
Astronomical.
disaster recovery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Certainly. Yeah, so ASP has been
Yep.
involved in disaster recovery in a formal way for the last
Yeah.
12
Florida
years. So
flat.
we've had
Storm
our
goes
foot in a
across.
few different localized disasters. I
Yeah.
originally grew up in Florida, so I know hurricanes, and but this is like nothing I've ever seen. Hurricane Helene. Yes, yes, exactly. And hitting Appalachia
Yep.
is a whole nother world. The destruction in Florida is really bad, and we pray for their recovery as well. There are systems in Florida that know when a storm's coming, and evacuations are there, and there's a system for recovery as well,
Right.
even though it is still hard on communities. Hurricane Helene up here. I mean, we knew it was coming. I
Yeah.
think some people are like, didn't they know? It's like, no, we saw it coming. We heard that it was bad.
Yeah. It goes
We
down.
hunkered down.
Yeah.
But the amount of water that came, it had rained the entire week before in this region, and then there
Yeah.
is just nowhere for it to go in the mountains.
Yeah.
It goes down into a funnel. Yeah, it goes down into a funnel, and everything just flash floods and
Yeah.
landslides. They are fast and they are violent, and families had just minutes. I mean, it was so fast to get out of their homes. Some didn't make it. A couple hundred didn't make it. And that was huge. And then we were cut off from everything. So many of the mountain towns, internet is already a problem. There was no internet. There's no electricity. There was no water. Asheville was a month and a half before they got drinking water back.
Jeez.
This is massive. And then it hits so many different areas. So where ASP is headquartered in East Tennessee, there are 32 different counties within our reach that are asking us for help right now to rebuild homes. So this is the biggest thing that we've ever responded to, and luckily we were out on the ground within 24 hours of the storm hitting, assessing damage and
Oh,
put a call
wow.
out
Yeah. Yeah.
for resources and people, and there was a response. So much so that we were able to start building right away. So we finished our first new home right as Thanksgiving was here. So we got our certificate of occupancy right after
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. We've finished another 4 homes since then. Just dedicated 10 homes because they'll be done by the time that we're back from Christmas break.
Yeah.
So it's amazing when those resources come quickly.
Yeah.
We could get out in
Absolutely.
the
I mean,
field
there
and
were
do them, but we
like
got a lot of work to do.
supplies
We've
being.
committed to at
There
least
are
200
already
homes.
still
But
places in
honestly, I hope the
Appalachia where the
number
mail is
grows.
delivered by mule train.
Because we
That
need
is
to be in
still
a
a thing
lot of
that
places
exists.
at once.
Which I didn't know until I didn't know until after the storm. But that was one of those like really interesting facts that they're like, because it was like there was this really interesting story about how all these people were delivering supplies to their neighbors via mule, because in the end that tech has always worked and continues to work. Mule, amazing creatures. And then it cuts to, and yeah, actually for some places this is how the USPS continues to deliver mail to this day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, these, the even in ideal non-landslide times, these are hard, as we talked about with the economics, like some of these places are just straight up hard to reach. And then you dump 30 inches of rain in 36 hours, and the scale of the problem just multiplies rapidly. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes, that's right. And we're not used to the level of wind damage either. So many trees came over. And so it's just
Oh
the
my gosh.
debris and the ability to get
Yeah.
through roads that were passable, but now are not. There's an area
Wow.
just over the mountain from us in western North Carolina where the train track is now in the river.
Wow.
So it's moved the train track. They're calling this a
Oh my gosh.
2,000 year geological event. So this is not even a 100-year
Yeah.
storm or a 1,000-year storm. This
Oof.
moved rivers. There were rivers that ran a
Yeah.
certain way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now are
Well, I
somewhere
mean,
else.
when I was driving
And so it's
through,
just
driving
it's a lot
I-40
to unpack,
less than a month ago,
and a lot
it
to
was
come
still like,
back from.
yeah,
This
parts of this
recovery will be
impassable.
measured in
You go
years,
in
not
Asheville,
months, for sure.
you're not. And that was, already many, many, many weeks post storm.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, major roads. And so, yeah, I think, I work with a
That's right.
organization
Yeah.
here called Houston Responds that was born out of, kind of our 500-year storm, Hurricane Harvey. Where we are at least a swamp, but it was 54 inches of rain dropped on the city, a already flood prone city. Now, there's a blessing in this. There is a place the water goes. It's called the Gulf of Mexico, and it's not that far. I mean, it's that way. It's not that far that way. But that was our 500-year storm, and a lot of kind of neighbor organizations popped up, and kind of Houston Responds
Right.
was born out of that influx of resources that happens when the nation, when you have a, how do I put this nicely? Because I do actually mean it kindly. But when you have a problem severe enough that the nation pays attention, shall we say, right? As the same here, different struggles. There's struggles here in Houston every day, whether we've been hit by Hurricane Harvey or not. There's struggles in Appalachia every day, whether you're hit by Hurricane Helene or not. But when you get hit by a Harvey or a Helene, resources show up. I think part of the the opportunity for joy in the midst of this is y'all can imagine the concept of building 200 homes and maybe building even more. I mean, because that stuff shows up. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the only way. Yeah, that's the only way. And we really do, in the midst of something as difficult as this, you see the best of humanity, and you see the best of the church. I think that pull of addressing an immediate need is something that is visceral, and it shows up, and those that are circled around being a structure that does this for each other, really can activate that pretty quickly. And the church helps in amazing ways when things like this happen. And we're super grateful for it. Sometimes Appalachia gets forgotten. But we do not feel forgotten right now. People have reached out in amazing ways. My hope is in the months and years to come, people will continue to come and to be a part of it and love on this region. I love this region so much. It's such a beautiful part of our country and
I
an
want to kind
incredible
of just
culture.
zoom out a little bit
And so I
thinking
just want
about
everybody to
what
experience it.
this podcast is
And it
called,
is
How to
one of those
Restart a
times where
Church, and
we're
that
hurting
often just means we
and
find
grateful
cool
for
people
any
who are doing
attention.
church related things and try to talk to them and see what we can learn from them, right? Like that's why you're here. You are a person in the world of church who is doing something yourself amazing and a part of something that is profoundly awesome. And I would love to know from your perspective, what lesson for the kind of broader church does ASP have? What do you think that at the core of what y'all doing? Because again, not everyone's called to coordinate construction, and praise God that you are. But again, that's not everybody's calling. That's not every church's calling, and so it's sometimes easy to listen to the stories of these amazing projects and go, well, I'm just not called to that, and so I can't what can I learn? I'm not going to coordinate 10,000 volunteers across 5 states. So if you, as you think, as you think ecclesiologically, as you think about like the work y'all do in the context of this thing called church, like what do you see as the lesson y'all have
Yeah.
to teach kind of the broader world of church?
Yeah.
Mm,
Sure.
yeah,
So ASP is not a church, and sometimes I think people are attracted to ASP,
yeah,
and I've heard the sentence before. ASP is my church, and I love that sentiment in some ways, and in other ways I mourn a bit that we might be missing the fullness of church if ASP is it. But I think what they're connecting to is that there's kind of this golden thread in
yeah,
the tapestry of life that ASP snags itself on. And that's connection with people and calling. And it feels like you're sitting in the right spot. And that's why it
Mhm.
feels like ASP
right,
is your
yeah,
church. And you asked the
Mhm.
question earlier, how do you equip
yeah,
people to do skilled tasks, right? And it's a good question because it's the first one that comes up like, man, this thing should not work, right? We've got, you said the age of 12 coming and working on major repairs when, I said not landscaping and not painting, that it's
amen,
more than
yeah,
that. And so there is the question of this shouldn't work. Well, ASP is in existence for 55 years now. And so I've come to believe that I think maybe this is the only way it's supposed to work. That when you show up with um, willing hands, open hearts,
yeah,
God moves, and God moves in incredible ways. And that's all it takes is a heart of a servant, being like a child, that faith like a child. That's all
yeah,
it takes, and God's going to take it from there. And I think that's the piece that the church is connecting to when it comes to ASP. So my advice there would
yeah,
be take it home. Your connection with your gifts and talents and the needs of the world is not relegated to your 1 week of service in, the
yeah,
beautiful mountains in central Appalachia. It
yeah.
is meant to
That's awesome.
be the way you
Yeah,
live.
we
And whatever
deeply
that
we
call is
deeply
in your
appreciate your
life,
time.
run, jump,
What
leap
hopefully no one
to live
watching
in the
this
middle of that
notices is the utter
intersection.
technical fight
And that's all that
that
God's asking me to
that
do.
made that made today's show possible. And so, thank you for your patience Emily's not in her normal studio. I'm in my home studio. It's a whole mess. So thank you for your patience. I want to give you a little space just to plug, nonprofits need money. Um, I, how can folks listening to this support the work that y'all do?
Yes, how can we help?
Yeah, sure. I would say whether it's with ASP or not, generosity is powerful, not only for those that you give to, but for yourself as well, and for this mission overall in the world. If you want to get involved with ASP, asphome.org is our website,
Awesome.
and that has all the information you need.
Well,
Whether
thank you
you
to
need
you at
help
home
with
as
your own
well
home and
for
need some
watching
repairs or
this.
a
A
replacement
couple
done, or would
programming
like to
notes.
donate or become
This
a
will be
volunteer,
we're
I
recording
would
this out of
say get
sync, and
involved,
so
jump
this
in.
does not make sense to Emily or I, because we have another show that we're recording later today that you will have already seen. It's great. It's all fine. Time is a flat circle. So we are going to be off for 2 whole weeks. And so there will be, we will not be recording anything from today until after the new year. And so there will be at least an entire week where we're dark, but there's probably going to be 2 weeks when we're dark because I am moving. I'm changing jobs. Our whole setup over the course of January will be moving to a new location. And so, yeah, we're going to take a couple weeks off. Some of our shows are going to change format a little bit too. I think we'll have more on that in the new year. Today, also, this is the last show that will go up on all of the Servants Now stuff. And so part of me changing jobs is that we will no longer be at Servants of Christ. And so our stuff will no longer show up on Servants of Christ web stuff. And so if you normally watch this on youtube.com/servantsnow or facebook.com/servantsnow, this is the last show that's going to show up there. This isn't the last show we're going to do. This is just the last show that we're going to do there. And so if you have been a Servants Now subscriber and want to continue on this journey with us, I invite you to subscribe, particularly at facebook.com/Divine Provisions Co. and youtube.com/Divine Provisions Co. If you're an audio listener, nothing is going to change other than there's going to be 2 weeks where nothing shows up in your feed. Don't give up on us. It's just we're taking a break. We're going to enjoy the holidays, and it's been a lot. But if you are have been with us on the Servants Now side of things, thank you. We invite you to continue with us. You just need to subscribe. Same platform, different page. That is youtube.com/Divine Provisions Co. or youtube.com/@Divine Provisions Co. and facebook.com/Divine Provisions Co. because we are the Divine Provisions Co. and we too need your help. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're a Servants Now subscriber, make the leap to come with us. If you'd like to be financially involved in what we do, studios, equipment, fixing whatever's wrong with Emily's camera today, costs money. And so we have a donate button on our website, divineprovisions.co. You can subscribe all the places at Divine Provisions Co. on YouTube, facebook.com/Divine Provisions Co., instagram.com/Divine at Divine Provisions Co., Blue Sky at Divine Provisions Co., and then Divine Provisions C on